Around a decade ago, if you were to hear the word Hollywood, you would most likely start thinking about your favourite actor or entertainment industry icon. You would probably imagine someone who was revered by the public, beloved for their talent and charm, that whenever you turned on your television or took a trip to the cinema, you felt graced by their on-screen presence. Today, however, it's difficult to think about Hollywood and the culture surrounding it without feeling an underlying sense of unease. Recent documentaries and stories found easily on the internet have put the industry in the spotlight once again, but not in a good way. And the recent allegations about some very prolific people in the entertainment industry isn't helping. When one thinks of Los Angeles, they typically envision that famous sign in the hills, and the sun shining down on all things wonderful and glamorous, as well as luxurious cars driven by decadent people and a nightlife that never ends. However, behind the filters and surface level glamour lies a murky and perverse underbelly. While this topic may be new to some, there is one author who has been talking about this subject for decades. Bret Easton Ellis's Less Than Zero and its sequel Imperial Bedrooms are two novels that follow the lives of wealthy, overprivileged teenagers as they tightrope between the worlds of limitless privilege and the chasm of despair. In this video, we will look at how Bret's vision of LA and how the themes, characters, and hedonistic values present in these two books resonate with the depraved nature of modern-day Hollywood. Bret Easton Ellis firstly broke into the literary scene in 1985 with his debut novel Less Than Zero, a coming-of-age story set in LA during the 1980s. According to Ellis, the novel is a criticism of the surface-level shallowness found within American consumer culture and the aimlessness and disillusionment of American youth. The story is told from the perspective of Clay, who was home from college for Christmas break. Clay spends his time partying, experimenting with drugs, and having promiscuous sex with strangers, all the while feeling detached and erotic to everything that is happening around him. In Clay's world, everyone floats around like ghosts, and not really connecting with one another. Conversations are limited to film and music, and whatever is trending at the time. The MTV Perpetual Present also finds its equivalent in the novel where everything seems to happen in the now. In Bret's depiction of LA, mass conformity brought on by the culture industry is the norm, creating a society which has become alienated from itself. Names are forgettable and often mistaken, and people are only distinguishable by their possessions. Everyone is described as being blonde and tanned while lacking any other identifying trait or substance. Parent intervention is non-existent, as these teenagers use their parents' mansions and money to satisfy their dark urges. As a result, in this society of wealthy narcissists, everything means less than zero. "You're a beautiful boy, and that's all that matters," is arguably one of the most profound quotes throughout the series. Ellis uses this quote to illustrate the shallow mindset found amongst the majority of characters within the story. During this particular scene in the later half of the novel, Clay accompanies his friend Julian to a hotel where he regularly works as a prostitute to pay off a drug debt. The client is a business executive of sorts, and takes pleasure in Julian's and Clay's discomfort. As Julian undresses, the client efforts to console him, telling them that he is beautiful and making him believe that he is lucky to be there. The encounter is unsettling and traumatic for Julian. Clay sits in the corner but is unable to comfort his friend or look away, stating that he needs to see the worst, and only shows a hint of concern when he suspects that there is a likelihood that his father could be a client of Julian's based on his business associates. In Ellis's depiction of Los Angeles, every horrible action is warranted as long as it can be used and exploited for pleasure. The characters, no matter their age or gender, are both victims and perpetrators of the male gaze, and live in a society where being rich and attractive has doomed them to an existence where they are nothing more than spoils waiting to be consumed. While reading this part of the novel, it is necessary to take into consideration the vulnerability of celebrity life and culture. I am reminded of the allegations against people like Harvey Weinstein and the many other celebrities who have shared their stories of misconduct and wrongdoing within the industry. And it is unfortunate to see the people who are recruited and often praised for their surface level qualities to be so easily disregarded. So much so that it becomes easy to think of the numerous celebrities over the years who unfortunately met an early end from drugs or other forms of self-destructive behaviour. While on the outside looking in, these people appear to have it all, but deep down, like Clay, the city of Los Angeles doesn't present itself as a sanctuary, but as a place where one can disappear. One of the most prominent themes seen throughout Lesson Zero and Imperial Bedrooms is the concept of hedonism and the aimlessness associated with excess in the pursuit of pleasure. Clay and his friends are all rich, beautiful, and popular, but also bored, purposeless, and directionless, with nothing to do with their time except indulge. Throughout the series, the characters seem to be on an endless quest to experience the greatest pleasures that hedonism can offer them, with no boundaries separating pleasure from perversity. The excessive drinking, illicit drug use, and promiscuity eventually lead to even darker methods to get a reaction, including playing a snuff film for laughs to eventually committing crimes of violent and sexual nature. These characters oscillate between the extreme poles of violence and ennui as they try to prevent their psyches from collapse amidst the surrounding turmoil caused by excessive consumption. And while some of the characters act upon their desires in more extreme ways than others, they all believe in some degree the idea that if you want something, you have the right to take it. This sentiment lingers over Clay and his friends for quite some time, during the period where they transcend from youth into adulthood, between Lesson Zero and Imperial Bedrooms. In the sequel, the worst things about the characters have been amplified, and it is now impossible to pass their actions off as ignorance or immaturity. Clay, for example, becomes a successful screenwriter who uses his influence to exploit a young actress as he allows himself to descend into the darkness he once tried so desperately to distance himself from. If Lesson Zero is a coming-of-age story, then Imperial Bedrooms is a degenerative descent, showcasing how lasting effects in a moralist environment can have on somebody if they linger there for too long. Imperial Bedrooms explores the vices of limitless indulgence and the toll that it can have on our subconscious, changing us into a version of ourselves that we might not even fully comprehend, where any pure thought becomes malignant through the pursuit of pleasure and the people we are willing to sacrifice in order to achieve it. In conclusion, Lesson Zero and Imperial Bedrooms is a reflection of the cultural and societal issues circulating within Hollywood and the entertainment industry. They are a satirical work of fiction focusing on the exploitations and perversity that lingers within environments which favours materialism and hedonistic values above everything else. Although it is a work of fiction, Lesson Zero and Imperial Bedrooms contain underlying and uncomfortable truths which have always been lurking in the darkness, and which now happen to be unfolding before our very eyes.